YouTube, what the crap's going on? Heir of Carthage here, and I am back in Total War Warhammer 2. Excited to bring you some multiplayer content on Curse of the Vampire Coast. So, it has been released to the public. I think we'll learn a lot about the Vampire Coast over the next couple of weeks in terms of how they factor into multiplayer. I do have a battle with them. I've got a couple, in fact. I'm going to show one tonight, another tomorrow. I'll be playing more battles. Both in quick battle probably, and also with the folks in the Discord. So make sure you go join the Discord. The Discord. We're trying to be 1,000 members strong, and we are pretty close. So click that link in the description if you want to be a part of the community. It's fantastic. Now, let's talk about the Curse of the Vampire Coast just a bit. If you are someone who just wants to see a battle, I'll have a timestamp in the description, or if I haven't done it yet, can someone please jump in, do it for me, put that timestamp there so that folks can skip ahead. So go check for that. In any case, how do the Vampire Coast play in multiplayer? Well, I think they can play a lot of ways, but I think that for the most part, one thing that's going to be clear for them is they probably won't be super mobile, and they're going to most likely, not always, but they'll probably have to rely on some ranged units. They definitely have the capability to be very monstery in terms of, yeah, they can bring some pretty vicious monsters and monstrous infantry. The one piece that's going to be very interesting for them is they do not have cavalry, so to speak. So there is no fast-moving component other than the very, very squishy scurvy dogs and fell bats. That's pretty much your options for fast-moving. There is some opportunity for ambushes in the sense that Morgul units can forward or vanguard deploy, but Morguls lack armor, and so it makes them very susceptible to certain units, very decent against others, but they're going to be susceptible to damage. So I think typically what you're going to see, again, this may just be like the overarching stereotype, is that the Vampire Coast are going to play very defensively, and they'll rely on their ranged in the form of probably deck gunners or a gunnery mob with handguns to dish damage from range. You could also definitely see carronades in there. For the cost, this is a pretty solid unit with long range. And then the mortar is going to be a good unit against tightly packed skirmishers or high-value infantry. And then on top of all that, you have a Necrofex Colossus, which is really good. At 1,800, quite expensive. You could get 3 cannons for the cost of that. But the Necrofex Colossus can fire whilst moving. It also midway when it comes to armor. But yeah, definitely a little more versatile in the way that it can be used. So range is going to be a thing. And then from a Lord standpoint, they offer, again, a pretty big variety here. You've got RNS Assault Spite, who could be a dismounted anti-large, anti-armor Lord, but again, watch out for the low armor. She does make up for it with a little bit of physical resistance, and she's got kind of a net type ability too that can help her out. Harkon is going to be an interesting one. I think that you'll probably see him around a lot on his Terrorgeist, unless someone's just trying to make a Lord that's annoying to kill because of that duelist trait here with 50 melee defense and high melee attack. And you can see here, he actually takes away physical resistance and adds a miscast chance every time he hits something. He can be mounted on this Death Shriek Terrorgeist, in which he'll cause armor-piercing damage as well, but still maintain, it looks like a poison melee attack, and his missile damage will do the minus to physical resistance, still the disrupted. He's also got an ability that can be pretty annoying here that slows things down, takes away a lot of melee defense and armor. So Harkon, I think, is going to be particularly dangerous mounted on his Death Shriek Terrorgeist, and he'll be more of a nuisance when he's on foot in terms of the way that he would act. And then this one here, you can see he should be able to keep enemies from sucking up winds of magic. Haven't gotten a chance to test that out. Silostra is going to be an interesting one, an ethereal lord. Very risky proposition. If you come up against a lord who's got Spirit Leech, or who has magical attacks, or units with magical attacks, Silostra is going to get nuked. But she's got magic, such as the... I'm trying to remember the name of it. Let's go into this... let me pick Silostra. It's... oh, where is it at? Van Geist Revenge. This one right here. Van Geist Revenge. This spell right here causes massive damage. Massive damage to blobbed infantry. So she could, it is not cheap in the way that it gets spent, but it will cause a ton of damage to blobbed infantry. She's got this Tide Call spell, which is pretty decent against unarmored type units, and it can be overcast as well. I'll just do a quick show you on that one. See, it causes even more armor piercing whenever you do the overcast. And then let's go back over here to Van Geist Revenge. That one overcast as well to increased armor piercing damage. But at 22 cost, yeah, it's going to cost a lot. It's going to be like your Wind of Death type spell here. It's got to be brought in at exactly the right moment. So I think Silostra is going to need to be one that you pick carefully. When would you want to bring Silostra? Maybe against greenskins or something like that, where there's less likelihood of you running into magical attacks. I said less likelihood, not none. So again, probably want to make those picks carefully. And then, of course, you can pick all these different vampire fleet admirals. You have the option of vampires, both with a polearm and with pistol. You got polearm death, pistol death, polearm deep, pistol defensive, and he can also be mounted on a Necrofex Colossus, which is pretty dang awesome. So Count Noctilus, potentially one of the most dangerous, tanky, long range. He's got the mix of shadows and vampires, and technically deep here too because of this Drowned Dead, but it's basically the same as just summoning any zombies. So he's got the Wind of Death, Invocation mixed with Melkoth's Miasma, the Withering, and Pit of Shades. So Noctilus very capable of causing some damage, especially with this Wraith Storm Bombardment, which is going to be really cool. He's got the Hunger, so if he's in melee, he can be replenishing. Definitely a really interesting unit. Yeah, so keep an eye on Noctilus. So Noctilus is going to be kind of like your Manfred von Karstein type player in terms of feel. So going to be very interesting to see how these guys play out. Let me go show you a battle. Again, that was just to kind of give you all a little rundown. Do I know exactly how they're going to play out? Like I said at the beginning, I don't. But we'll see. I know one thing that they're going to struggle with, and you all saw me have to fight it against Indie Pride, was missiles. They do pack a wallop from range. The Vampire Post can, or the Vampire Coast. But they are going to struggle, I think, against Wood Elves as one of the factions. And right now, Regina and I are on a team up against Pilgrim, and I'm trying to remember the other player's name. I apologize, I don't remember. We'll see it at the end, and you all saw it coming in there. But we're going to try and actually demonstrate that. So one of the few units that can catch archers is the Scurvy Dogs, but you just saw how quickly they were to be dealt with here. A couple of volleys, and they might as well be out of the fight. The Scurvy Dogs do not have the armor to really deal any damage. Again, a forward deployed Mourngul gets the better of me for a moment. You can see that even they have already taken a decent bit of damage. They'll heal it, but I'm going to be able to retreat my archers. And Wild Riders love fighting stuff without armor, and that is going to be Mournguls. They will take tremendous damage to a unit like Wild Riders. A lot of the units in the Vampire Coast will take tremendous damage from Wild Riders. I had a weird misclick thing here where I clicked an attack with the Glady, and she was in range, but she kept moving forward and got herself shot up. Let me introduce you to my army. I've got 4 Eternal Guards over here, a Spellsinger, and the Glady. And then I've got, I think it's 5 Deepwood Scouts and 1 Waywatcher hidden way in the back. And then I've got 2 I've got 1 Waystalker and 2 Wild Riders. And then Regina, my teammate here, she has some Deepwood Scouts with Swift Shiver Shards. Whew, it's always a mouthful to say. I'm going to go into slow-mo so we don't miss any more of the battle. She's also got the Firebark Elders. She's just keeping them around my infantry. And then she's got, what is her main force here, which is some Waywatchers, a Waystalker, the Hawkeyes of Drakira, a Glady, a Spellsinger, Lore of Life, the Wild Hunters of Kurnos, a Wild Rider, and you can see that, again, Scurvy Dogs being used here, but Scurvy Dogs do not have any form of pirate prayer that will help them against Wild Riders. Even if they get the charge, Scurvy Dogs are going to only be good for mopping up routing units and possibly extremely light exposed skirmishers. So for the Vampire Coast, there's some deck droppers with handguns. These are going to be AP, potentially high damage units that can fly around, give a little bit of mobility to what's otherwise a fairly low mobility faction. I think zombie pirate gunnery mobs with handguns are going to be a staple for most Vampire Coast army, as are some pole arms mixed into all these units. And then I've seen a lot of use so far of deck gunners, kind of a mid-range unit that can cause quite a lot of damage and be pretty effective against armored targets. So here, as far as the enemies, we're up against Count Noctilus and Aranessa Saltspite, and there is a Necrofex Colossus here as well. So let's see how our armies do. The armies are all focused around skirmish, because we know that the Vampire Coast don't really have shields. They don't have a lot of armor, and what armor they do have, we've got some armor-piercing archers, and we are counting on the long range and the Vanguard deploy for the element of surprise here to take out key units. So again, the deck gunners, one of the longer range units, are going to be my focus fire early on here. And if the deck droppers or other units come in to try and do their damage or try and get line of sight into the woods, then they're going to bring themselves dangerously close to a whole lot of missile fire that they don't want to be a part of. So this gives us a nice advantage here, because the slowness of the Vampire Coast and their need to protect their artillery here. They have a carronade. I do believe that mortars would be more effective against elf units. The carronade would probably be better against factions where you expect large units. If they were expecting a dragon, though, I think the carronade is a fair pick. But yeah, you can see that from a distance, we will be able to slaughter any of the archers they bring in. I'm going to use some arrows of Kurnos from a distance here. Try and do some damage to the artillery piece. The carronade is going to get a lot of damage. But you can see again how quickly those deck droppers drop when they get themselves into a bad position. They take tremendous damage very quickly. There's not a lot of units there. They cause really good missile damage, but relatively low number of missiles. So you can see they took tremendous damage. I'm kind of working the flank here. There was a deck gunner out to the flank, and I'm able to pretty quickly focus fire and put them under. So again, this is going to be a huge weakness for the Vampire Coast. Now, there's some ups and downs for the Vampire Coast, this type of standoff engagements. The downside is they have almost no armor, and they're very exposed to the missiles of an enemy, but they're also zombies. They don't rout. They will crumble if they get low enough, but this means that they can sometimes stick around in a fight for an annoyingly long time. Like right here, you know, if I was playing a normal enemy, that type of damage might quickly rout a skirmish unit. It won't rout the zombies, because you can't rout the undead units like that. And you can see over here, even where they've managed to get some zombies in to try and get a hold of them, Wild Riders are able to just very quickly make short work of any unit that is not very good at facing them. The carronade is really the only thing doing any damage from range here. And basically, Regina and I are just biding our time. And some people are like, "Air, I hate this type of gameplay. I hate it when the Wood Elves play this way." Well, they're Wood Elves. This is one of the ways they're going to play. Not the only way they're going to play. This is one of the ways they're going to play. And they have to. That's their specialty, is archers and use of hit-and-run tactics and long range. That's the way the Elves play, and the same way that the Vampire Coast play the way they do, which is very defensive, and that's why I think that the Wood Elves are going to be one of the natural counters out there. I'm not saying that they will always win versus Vampire Coast. I just think that they're a natural counter in the sense that they provide the opposite to what the Vampire Coast does, which is somewhat stationary, defensive, mid-range gameplay, long range with some artillery. But if you get into a standoff fight, you're going to be outranged by the more superior factions. And you can see that the amount of damage I'm able to lay in with the Deepwood Scouts is significant. We look at the numbers here, over 600 Vampire Counts units lost to only about 200 of our own. So far, a pretty good trade for us. Now, it is a fodder faction, So you gotta take that for what it's worth. Check out this Regiment of Renown unit here, the Night Terrors. These guys look like crazy, like glowing red. That is a really, really cool looking unit. This Necrofex Colossus is also a really good looking unit. So far as something that hideous can be good looking. As you can see here, I'm doing a little bit of standoff skirmishing that I shouldn't be because I'm in range of some decked gunners. You can see the decked gunners able to get some damage done. I'm being a little too risky with my skirmishers here, and I take some damage that I shouldn't by getting into range of a couple of his handguns. These guys 145 range, not bad, not bad. It's just going to be line of sight that they struggle with, and I don't have any cover from the line of sight right here. You can see the way that these pirates deployed helps them with that. You see a lot of patient play from Regina, and mostly patient play from myself, not always. Sitting back, use the ammunition. The Vampire Coast cannot do anything but try and return fire at this point. And that's where we're kind of demonstrating how this defensive play style can be taken advantage of, in the sense of if you have someone who can move more quickly and more aggressively, they're going to be able to do some hit and run and pick at you. So head-on assaults into a Vampire Coast line is very dangerous because you can have gunnery mobs and handguns, and here's armor-piercing missiles. The deck gunners are armor-piercing. The Necrofex is armor-piercing. Then you have the pole arms, which can help slow down large. These Morn Ghouls, which can damage him. They're not a faction that you want to just plow into and try and zerg, because you're going to really pay a price for that. At least that's what I'm thinking. Y'all have to tell me what your experience is. In fact, please do share your experience from the first day of gameplay online. I would be really happy to hear what you guys are learning online. I will be studying some on how other players are finding them. And I may try and bring Dov Plays and Indie Pride on to play some more battles and share their insight too, so you don't just have to take my insight for it on how they play or how to play against them. So now that we've kind of chewed through some of the outer defenses, there are still a few deck guns, but you're going to see us getting rid of the Carronade and now trying to focus on the pirate leadership. They do not have an answer. They do not have an answer to the amount of range we've brought, in the sense that the only real tools that they could deploy against this, and it's tricky because you can try and bring more guns and get into this fight with the elves, but it's hard to close the distance. I think mortars would have been good, but there are trees on the map, there's terrain on the map, and gunpowder can sometimes just suffer a bit against archers on a broken map. I think you get onto a flat map, and you can push some of the advantage of the gunpowder and its heavy firepower that comes to bear on the battlefield. But yeah, I don't know, just again, stuff to think through. Stuff to think through. If we had brought infantry rush type armies, or for instance, had I brought Durthu, which is tempting because he's a legendary lord and fun to play, think about what would have happened to Durthu. Deck guns, Necrofex, deck droppers, all the units that would have been dishing armor-piercing missile damage on Durthu. It's very, very risky. So I think that's the type of play that is going to serve Vampire Coast well, is fighting against that. What they won't like, again, is the more hit-and-run type. Look at the Morn Ghouls here. Not typical to see Wild Riders do really good against monstrous infantry, but they absolutely will against Morn Ghouls, and it's because their weapon strength is really nice. And they just do really good against anything that has low armor. You can see even these Night Terrors get over here. I think that was about 1 or 2 volleys off my Way Watchers, and I held the Way Watchers in reserve. I wanted all their ammo and all their unit models to make it into the late game. So I held them in reserve, and right now they're picking at Aranessa so that she won't be able to cause as much damage in this fight. You can see that she's getting tired of this real fast. Way Watchers are tearing her up. So lost some of my archers there, but they were basically out of ammo at that point, and then my Wild Riders are making quick work of all of these Night Terrors. You can see Regina here moving on out. I went ahead and engaged my Spearmen, and right now I'm supporting them with some Earthblood. And Shield of Thorns has some new capabilities too. You can see it there with physical resistance and then an increased weapon damage. So trying to support my units, keep them in the fight longer by healing and making them stronger in the fight. And this will serve as a distraction to some of the zombie units and hopefully keep them busy while our remaining skirmishers finish off what little threats remain. There came a wind of death, but it looks like it didn't actually make it down the archer line this direction. So the wind of death from Count Noctilus not able to cause too terribly much damage. At this point, now that most of the range units are distracted and the pole arms are distracted, I'm able to bring the Wild Riders in and start massacring zombie gunners. So had to be patient with these, bring them in later in the game. Again, don't get impatient. If you charge into that geometry for these Vampire Coast, I think you're going to pay for it. Count Noctilus now. Getting a little bit embarrassed here. Knocked all over the battlefield and shot up. Glady has been skirmishing the Necrofex Colossus. I've been using her to pick at him. And then Noctilus has been eating it from my Waystalker and my Way Watchers, who are dealing considerable damage. And this is going to be the last throes of the Vampire Coast. So you can see Noctilus going down, the Necrofex going down, and now just some summoned zombies being burned by the Firebark Elders. Holy crap, that unit is beautiful. Firebark Elders is probably one of the coolest looking units in the game. Really a cool unit. So I'm going to charge in the Wild Riders, everything else, and that's all that's left. So this shows you how, I mean, in a similar manner that I had to struggle against Indy with the Wood Elves, I do think that it will be a struggle against the Wood Elves. Again, it's not going to be a guaranteed win every time you're playing against them, and the Wood Elf player may or may not choose to play the way that we did. They can be dangerous in more than one way, so just wanted to show this as one example. I have another battle where we played as the High Elves against the Vampire Coast, and I'd like to show that one because it is a different matchup. The High Elves are quite different than the Wood Elves, and I will show you how that one went tomorrow. But let's take a look at the results. So Parker, thank you, Parker. It was awesome to have you in the battle. Thanks for being in that Discord and joining us. So you can see here, Parker, he got a lot of kills with this Necrofex and got decent kills with the Carronade, but again, when you happen to fight that battle from a distance, it can take a really big toll. And then same thing for Holy Pilgrim here, just difficult for them to deal that damage effectively from range with all of the damage that you can cause with the Wood Elves. So on my side, obviously the Wild Riders had a decent time. Deepwood Scouts had a decent time. The Way Watchers came in late, but you'll see that they already have a chevron. That's because of the damage they dealt to Aranessa and then to artillery pieces. So pretty quickly leveling them up. And again, just holding the infantry till the end and then supporting them with the Spellsinger to make it harder for them to be killed or routed. And Shield of Thorns, you know, Earthblood, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, from Regina's side, Deepwood Scouts, one of them doing quite well, the other's doing well. She was better at keeping hers alive. I'm obviously much more sacrificial with my units. Her Glady also got a little bit more done. And then the Wild Hunters here got a pretty decent chunk of kills, considering that there's almost no damage to them at this point. So thank you to Pilgrim and Parker and Regina for the game. I've got another one for tomorrow. Like I said, this time it would be High Elves, and I will show you how that one turned out because, again, it's a very different matchup. We'll be playing more of these battles. Again, please share what you think in the comments. Looking forward to hearing what you think, and I'm looking forward to playing more battles. HeirofCarthage, signing out for now.